BookTube and welcome to a new video. This is a tag video hot off the press because it was originated by Sean the Book Maniac about 2-3 hours ago on Friday, and I'm responding to it. He tagged everyone, but he also tagged me specifically. So this is the Mookse and Gripes bucket list book tag, and I shall post the link to Sean's video. But I'm familiar with the Mookse and Gripes as a Goodreads group who have group chats around the Booker Prize and the Booker International Prize, and also I think the Republic of Consciousness Prize. And I've actually met one of its sort of founding members, Paul Fulcher. But I wasn't aware that they had a podcast, so I shall post the link to that and give it a listen to myself. So this is basically just asking you to name 10 books on your bucket list. And the first thing to say is I don't really have bucket lists in books or in life. There's nothing so pressing an ambition that I feel that I want to do it before my life ends, just to say I've done it. I'm reasonably content with my life without being complacent about it. So as I say, I don't sort of have these sort of unfulfilled ambitions, but also I have a huge problem with the concept of bucket list, as in things to do before you die. I would rather kick the bucket away rather than kick the bucket. And it's interesting derivation for the notion of bucket list, because it only really came about for that film with the same name starring Morgan Freeman, which I don't know exactly when it came out, but we're only talking 10-15 years, and yet it's a phrase that's definitely caught on around the world. But that itself obviously comes from the concept of kicking the bucket, and I went to look up its derivation, and it seems somewhat clouded in ambiguity, from suicides who supposedly stood on buckets in cities rather than out in the countryside in order to, and they put a noose around their neck, to the slaughtering of pigs and piglets involved a bucket in some way, and that when the pig struggled it would kick the bucket. These all seem rather unsatisfactory to me. And then there's a derivation from, I think, Louisiana or Mississippi slang. So it's slightly shrouded in ambiguity as to where the phrase origin itself came from. But anyway, so 10 books on a bucket list. As I say, I don't have a books bucket list, but I do have books that I won't be getting to this year or next year. So I think that's sufficiently far in the future to sort of fulfill this tag. So the first, and I can group them together under sort of categories. The first category is books I would like to read anytime soon, but I can't get hold of them because they're out of print and or they're too expensive second-hand. So there are 3 books that come into that category. The first is B.S. Johnson's first novel called Travelling People, which has been out of print for many years, and I went on a site today just to get an idea of what the price is, and it's about 125 quid, and I'm not prepared to pay that for a book. I suspect unless it's republished, and presumably because all his others have been republished, there must be a problem with the legal ownership of the rights of that book, which is why it hasn't been republished. So I suspect I won't ever get to read that book. The second is Jonathan Safran Foer's Tree of Codes, which is an experimental book in that he took is it a book or a play, I can't remember, called The Street of Crocodiles, and he sort of based his book on that. And what he's done, and it's published I think by Visual Editions, is that in certain places in the text it's sort of gouged away by some sort of cutter. So you're reading the sentence on the page, and then sort of set in recess is a page further on in the book, because what you were reading on that page is not there. And I think it's a really interesting concept, and I'm annoyed with myself because when it came out under Visual Editions, I did consider buying it, and then I didn't, and now of course it's very, very expensive. I think it's about $80 on Thrift Books, which is more than I'm prepared to pay. I don't think it's the greatest novel in the world, but I just would like to see how that concept works of the text being non-linear and sort of, physical the physical sort of embodiment of the text, sort of how that feeds into the story itself. And the third is a book I've talked about on several different tags, and I will, if I can track down the last time I talked about it, I'll post a link to it, because I'm not going to talk about it in any detail again today. But it's the book called The Consumer by a musician called Michael Gira, who is the lead singer and musician of the band Swans. And in 1990 he wrote these short stories and put together in a book called The Consumer, which I desperately wanted to get hold of because I really liked Swans and I really liked his lyrical style. And I actually wrote to him in New York and sent him cash through the post. That's the story. I'll post a link to it if I can find it. I didn't get the book. Now you only ever see it in its German edition, which is no good to me. Where it is in the original English, I think so few of them were printed up. It's about 150 quid. So again, I don't anticipate ever getting to read that, but of all of those three, that's the one I most want to read. So those are the first three books. Now on to the second category, which is completism. And I started reading this, Klaus Lispector, the Chandelier. I put it down. I will get back to it. I'm actually planning on finishing it this year. When I finish this, I believe I would have read all of Clarice Lispector's novels. But to be a completist, and I do want to be a completist in the case of Clarice Lispector, there's a collection of her short stories. I don't know what it's called offhand. And I'm off short stories, as you probably know if you've followed my channel for any time. But there is that sort of counter tendency, that counter push of I do want to finish everything by Clarice Lispector. So it's not a decision I have to face at the moment because I need to finish this first. When I finish this, then I'm going to weigh up at what point in the future do I buy a copy of her short stories and read them. And another author I want to be a completist of is William H. Gass. So this year I read, I'm reading The Tunnel, which is maybe his masterwork. I will finish that this year, which leaves me just two more of his to finish. One is Middle G, which is his last novel just before he died. And the other is interestingly called Cartesian Sonata. So obviously middle G and sonata music, I assume, forms the theme of both of them. What's interesting about this book is it's called Cartesian Sonata and Other Novellas. So how many are there, I wonder? Yeah, there ought to be 4 novellas. Yeah, so it won't be anytime soon because The Tunnel will be the only Gass book I read this year. Not sure when I'm going to get to these two, but I do want to get to them to, as I say, be a completist. So that's 6 books. Now the next collection I'm just going to call Mammoths. So as you may know, I've made 2021 my year of reading mammoths, some of which I'd started in previous years and got intimidated by and put down. This year I wanted to pick them back up and clear the decks. I didn't want them lying, around with bookmarks in and stuff. So I set myself a target reading 10 books of 600 plus pages. Currently I've read 6 and I'm part way through, as I say, William Gass's The Tunnel, which will make 7, then I have 3 more. These 2 were in the original consideration but didn't make the cut for 2021. Red or Dead by David Peace. Now, this, as you can see, this is sort of got football cover. Now, that manager there, Brian Clough, was the study of David Peace's novel The Damned United, which I think is David Peace's best book. This one is about Bill Shankly. As you can see, obviously they were leading their teams out in a match that actually exploded in violence and had 2 players sent off. But I think, like The Damned United, this will be the life and times of Bill Shankly, the Liverpool manager. And my reluctance is, apart from the fact this book is 700 pages, whereas The Damned United was about 250, my reluctance is, do I want to read another book about a football manager by the same author? I'm struggling to see what this could do that adds on value to what he did in The Damned United. Yes, Bill Shankly is a different character, but I would imagine it's going to be the similar sort of technique and similar sort of, working class sort of leadership that The Damned United was. So I'm a bit sort of struggling to know when I'm actually going to be in the mood for this. and William T. Volman, The Royal Family. So I've never read Volman. I've heard lots and lots of good things about him from people like Leaf by Leaf. Now this is the only one of his I owned. As I say, it was under consideration for my mammoths for this year, but didn't make the cut. What does this one weigh in at? 775 pages. I have a provisional plan to buddy read this with the Republic of Bad Taste, who doesn't have a booktube channel but is on Twitter. We follow each other, and he's a huge Volman fan. Hasn't read this one, so as I say, next year we're provisionally going to read it. So this is not the bucket list book, but if I like Volman on the basis of this book, there are plenty of other Volman books that would potentially be bucket list books. So I think that makes 8. Although slightly woolly. Then we come to other books. Moby Dick, obviously a classic, weighing in at 620 pages in this Penguin Classics Deluxe edition, although it does have deckled edges, worryingly. I was sent this by Mitchell Axler with a whole load of other books, most of which I've read. I've not read this one. I know it is probably or possibly one of the greatest of American classics. At the moment, I'm not moved to pick it up and read it. It was never even in consideration for my mammoths for this year, but I will do. And interesting, Courtney Ferreter reviewed it this year, the first time she'd read it, and she was absolutely bowled over by it, which sort of imparts a bit of momentum into me picking it up. But you know, I struggle to read pre-20th century novels, although ironically I'm reading one now, but I will get to it. I just don't know when. And Celine, a terrible human being. I've never read him. I've heard good things about his literature, if not his humanity. I do want to dip my toe into the Celine acid bath of vitriol. But again, something in the back of my mind always pulls back, just when I think I'm going to pick this up, because of who he was. But, you know, I will get to this. And then the other one, which I think makes 11, I've rather lost count, is I Love Dick by Chris Kraus. Now, 3 or 4 years ago, I ordered this, and I'm sure it was delivered. And for some reason, instead of taking it upstairs where all my books are housed, I left it downstairs and I can't find it. It's disappeared. Now, I do have a URL link to where it's been published in full online, but I struggle to read on a computer screen, and I don't think I've ever read a novel. You know, it's just too difficult for me. I have read poetry, I've read memoir, I've read a bit of philosophy and stuff. I would love to know whatever happened to my copy of I Love Dick. I mean, I wonder if someone in the house found it, was so outraged by the title they threw it straight in the bin. I don't know. It's all very mysterious. But I'm reluctant to buy it again because I've bought it once. But I would like to read it. So there you have it. That's a sort of bucket list. Thanks very much to Sean for originating the tag. Thanks to the folk at Mookse and Gripes for providing lots of entertainment and erudition on the books that they discuss. Till next time, thanks very much.